Let's talk about ghosts, baby. Let's talk about spooky things, because it's September, and September means October. We are trying to find the will to live. So it's fall, okay? Sue me. I'll see you in court. It's fall. Hello and welcome back to It's Queer Magic. It's me, your spooky host, Kirbo. It's still week A in the Alphabet Superset, but we're doing another video. Why? I want to. Woo! And because I didn't get to go to Beyonce, okay? I didn't get to go. So let's talk about apparitions. Let's talk about apparitions. I looked it up because I was like, what's the difference between an apparition and a ghost? Is there a difference between an apparition and a ghost? What is it? And when you look it up, the answer is no. There is no difference between an apparition and a ghost. The distinction is made a lot of times in academic studies because they're like, we're looking into this, but we don't want to give you the impression that some piece of you might linger after death. So we're going to call it an apparitional experience. I'm like, okay. That doesn't give me the impression that some part of me lingers after death, but I like the word ghost, but I like the word apparition as well. I think that it's cool also that there are so many Marian apparitions, right? Because when you think of the word apparition, it almost always, at least for me, comes with Mary, the Virgin Mary, Mother Mary. That's the main apparition, right? If anybody's seeing someone, it's usually Mary. Homie, she has been in toast, just like a tortilla. She's been in the sky. Statues of her have come to life. She has been bright as the sun. She's been underwater. Anywhere that you can look to possibly see a Marian apparition, she has been there. She has appeared. She's apparished as often as possible. And I think that's really funny because in a weird way, because I'm weird, because I know that when I was doing research on Mother Mary, she's not necessarily popular with the Catholic Church. Now, don't get me wrong, she's super popular with Catholics, people who practice a folk Catholicism, of folk Catholic witches, the actual people, the Catholic folk. She's a superstar. She's bigger than anything. She's the Beyonce of the Bible. You know what I'm saying? She's number one. Is that blasphemous? Cute. What I mean to say is that she's so huge among the people, but the church have tried multiple times to lessen her importance, to say the least, right? To sort of skirt around the issue of Mother Mary. They don't want us worshiping a goddess, right? So they are no, but that's the main thing they got going for them. The main miracle, the main thing that people are experiencing everywhere is seeing Mother Mary. Oh, you don't want Mary in the church? Too bad. She's the main reason people are showing up. I wanted to take this time to talk about ghosts, to tell a couple of ghost stories, because I did not want to do that on G because I've got other things in G that I want to talk about. So here we are. Apparitions. Apparitions what? Ghosts. I have done mediumship work in my career, in my life. It's not my favorite thing to do, and I don't offer it anymore. Not because I don't like ghosts or I don't like spirits. I still do spirit work. I still do spirit channeling, but maybe this is a conversation for another time, but I just didn't actually enjoy mediumship under the definition that we use, the popular definition, which is connecting people to recently dead or their beloved dead, people that they knew. And, I just didn't enjoy it. It didn't make me feel good. I never felt comfortable. And while I had some pretty successful sessions, I think that you should like that kind of work. I don't think that you should force yourself to do it. There's so many mediums. I don't need to be one, so I don't do it. But that doesn't mean I have not had my fair share of ghostly encounters. Now, when I was younger, my first sighting of a ghost was at a powwow when I was really young. I would love to tell you how old I was, but I don't have maybe 4, really small. And I don't know that I knew it was a ghost at the time. I just saw this indigenous girl. She was in full regalia. I was in regalia and she was in regalia. And I literally just thought she was a person. I thought she was another person about to join the dance because it was competition. And she was there, and I'm gay, right? So I've always, since I was really little, been when I saw pretty girls. And I just thought she had the prettiest hair. I thought she was wearing, I remember it was pink, but not like bright pink. It was like a soft pink, a stripe of soft pink, and a stripe of soft blue. Oh my God, trans rights. It was in the shape of like a jingle dress. If you're with me, if you know what that means. It's like a floor length, ankle length skirt, that non-stretchy material, and it's like a straight leg, like almost like a pencil skirt. Yeah, like a pencil skirt. But not stretch. Except for it didn't have any actual like cone, like metal cones, like little rolled up cones, right? To make the jingle, to make the bell sound. But it looked like a jingle dress, but it didn't have jingles on it. And she was there, and then she just wasn't there. It's like she disappeared before my eyes. And I was like, sort of like whatever. I was not moved by it. I was just like, okay. And I went along with my life. That I account for my first ever sort of ghost experience. But not long after that did I have an actual prolonged experience with I guess a haunting. Haunting feels like it has a negative connotation, which I don't know if it's fair. So I don't know if there's another word, but ultimately this ghost lived with us. So, you know, a haunting in Long Beach, California. This had to have been within the same year, because looking at it, like I couldn't have been older than 5. I might have also still been 4. So this is like wild. I'm actually just now making this connection that was like at the same time. We lived in a house in Long Beach, on the Lakewood, Long Beach border, I believe. I thought it was in Lakewood my whole life, and then I looked at a map and it's actually in Long Beach. So, behind the Johnny Reds. And this was one of the times that we were doing pretty okay. Like I grew up in like a roller coaster of having money and not having money, having it being really, really poverty conditions, and then doing really well. And this is at a time where we were on an upswing. We were doing really well. We lived in this house. The older boys had a bedroom, the younger boys had a bedroom, and I had my own bedroom. My grandma lived in the pool house. My great grandma was still alive, and she was living in our den. So this is like a house that I remember. We never had a house like this again, where like so many people had their own rooms, and like my grandma and my granny like all lived with us without, you know, it being not enough space. We had so many dogs. But in this house, there was a pool. And I don't know if this part is true, but there was a rumor, or at least what I was told, again, I was a child, that a child had drowned in the pool before we moved in there. And I think we only figured this out because we all, and I mean literally all of us, were having experiences with a spirit. And it was absolutely a child. It was a little girl. They said like 5. And for the most part, we would just see a braid. Like she would peek around a corner and we'd see a braid hanging down. And that was like the most common experience that we all had. And the longer we lived there, the more activity there was. I remember we had a bunch of Fisher-Price toys, including like a little merry-go-round, and there would be like no wind, no movement, and that thing would just be going around. We had, you know, that classic Fisher-Price car. It's like orange and red, and you use your feet to move it. That thing would be rolling around in the back. I'm like remembering this being like, whoa. But I had a really strict mom who had like emotional issues, and so we would get in really severe trouble, get really screamed at if things weren't neat and things weren't clean. And my mom had several boys, and I was assigned female at birth, and she was like my girl, and so I was like her doll in a lot of ways. We did beauty pageants. I had so many like girl toys. I had so many dolls. I had a big window in my room that had stuffed animals like completely filling the window. Basically the walls were like lined with toys. I had a canopy bed. My mom was like living out her dream with me. I wasn't interested in any of it. I didn't want to be in that room basically at all. The only thing that was like a girl toy that I was bought that I wanted to play with was a tea set. I kept getting tea sets and I kept getting in trouble because I wanted to put water in them. It's water, one, and two, I don't want to use my imagination. I want to put water in this. But my room was always a mess. My room was always played in. My room was always destroyed, and I didn't play in it. And my mom didn't believe me for a long time because she just would get dysregulated immediately and start freaking out and yelling, and she didn't have a minute to like calm down and like listen. You know, I was 4 or 5, she was like not believing me, and I was not playing with those toys. I wanted to be in the street with the boys playing football with my shirt off. I did not want to play with that stuff. Because she didn't believe me, and because it got to a certain point where we were all having experiences and my mom was like very into it, so she wanted to know what was going on. He set up a sort of like trap. Not a trap, but a test, right? So my room got cleaned perfectly, everything got put away, and the door was closed, and everybody in the household left. I think we went to Sizzler. I don't remember, but I think it was Sizzler. And we came back hours later and my room was played in. Completely. My room was played in. The toys, there were dolls in the dollhouse. There was the stuffed animals out of the window. It was mussed. It was played with. It wasn't wrecked like it looked like somebody came in just to destroy things. It just looked like somebody had played with the toys. And my mom finally believed me. Did she stop yelling at me about it being messy? No. That was when it was like, okay, no, something is going on here. Like, we absolutely have a ghost. We have a spirit. And I could not handle it. It was the scariest thing in the world. I was sleeping in my mom's room every single night. She put me to bed and I would creep past my bedroom hallway. My bedroom door was across the hall from hers, and between us was the staircase going downstairs. And I remember that being the scariest part. I did not want to cross in front of the staircase into the like dark downstairs. It was scary, but I did it every night, and I ran into my mom's room and I closed my eyes, jumped into her bed and closed my eyes and was like, if anything happens, if you hear anything or see anything, just close your eyes and pretend to be asleep, because anything can happen and you're just not here. You're asleep. They can't make you wake up. Like, you're asleep. That was my plan. And you know what? It worked. Okay. Things progressed to where multiple kids, like I was the second to youngest, and then I have a younger brother and then several older brothers. And so many of us were sleeping in that room because it just was scary. Like, we were scared. I wasn't equipped to understand what was going on. And I also was dealing with extrasensory experiences to where I was going to school knowing that she was coming with me. Like, I was going to school unable to go to the bathroom by myself. Like, I was peeing in class because I was too afraid to go to the bathroom. Because if I was by myself, then I knew that it had to be a ghost. It had to be something because I wasn't alone. And when I was around people, you can write off that energy as somebody's around me. But when you go to the bathroom in the middle of class, you go by yourself. And if you go by yourself, you know that you're not alone. And I couldn't handle it. It was so scary. It's sad. I wish I had the like knowledge I have now. I wish I had somebody who was able to like understand and share with me what was happening. My mom tried. She wasn't completely unaware of this stuff. Like, I come from a line of women who were like, we're not witches. You know, like, here's what to do for this. Here's what to do about this spirit. Here's this story. Here's this folklore tale. Here's this. But that's not what we are. My mom used to take me to go to her tarot readings, and my granny was like an old-timey frontier woman kind of style. She chopped her toe almost off and stuffed some tobacco in the cut and kept chopping wood because that's just who she was. I do have like vague memories of my granny like talking to me about it and trying to tell me that I didn't have to be as scared as I was, and that there was a difference between a ghost and something that was dangerous and evil. And I remember something about like her telling me that like God was protecting me, or that I was protected. I don't remember, but I know that they like kind of tried, but they did not have the like language and the understanding and the relationship with the spirits to accurately deliver me the tools for me to not be afraid. And this all progressed to the point where my mom and my older brother went on a TV show. I don't remember the name. Again, I was small. I actually have tried to find this and I wasn't able to find it anywhere. It was like a talk show, right? Remember when they were doing talk shows and they do makeovers and all sorts of stuff? This was one where they do that, and they had an episode where they went to people's houses who had ghosts, and they brought a psychic and they brought a police sketch artist to get like a picture. And I remember I was so upset because I had to be in the pool house with my grandma, who I hated and did not my granny. I love my granny. My grandma I was not a fan of. She was racist. It was a lot. But I did not want to be in there. All the cool stuff was happening in the house with the cameras and the people. And I wanted to be in there, but I couldn't because I was a child. So I remember sitting there. It felt like so long. But at the end of it, I got to see the picture that the police sketch artist had drawn. And I was like, that's her. That's Sarah. And we were like, it's Sarah. Her name is Sarah. And I don't know if we learned that from the psychic. I think we did. I don't remember her having a name before that. If you're one of my brothers and you remember this story and I'm wrong, please correct me. Tell me in the comments, Jamie, right? Tell me what's up. Then we had her name. And there was one final piece of the story where I remember I was playing with these boys that lived across the street and I was telling them about the ghost and they didn't believe me. They said that she was not real. And I was mad because I was like, she's real. And I brought them in. We stepped just inside the door and I was like, Sarah, these boys don't think you're real. Like, they don't think you're real. Do something so that they know that you're real. And that light bulb broke ahead of us. And I remember getting in trouble for that, which again, not really fair, not my fault, but I was just as scared as them. I was just as scared as I don't know who I was trying to show off to because I was like, and I ran out of the house with them. And I don't know exactly what made us leave that house, but I do remember that very many of us were sleeping in my mom's bed and she was sort of fed up with that. It could have been other things. Like, I feel like that it might have been financial stuff because it was like a roller coaster growing up, but it got to the point where no one was really comfortable at all, you know? And I think that it could have been fine, but again, we didn't have the information to know. That's like the ghost story where I was involved and there was stuff going on. And I don't want this to be the longest video ever, but I just have one more section of my life where I saw a lot of ghosts that I think will be fun to talk about. So I worked in a theater in Hollywood that was built in like 1930s. It's where like the first televised Academy Awards were. There's a lot of movie premieres, and now it's like a musical theater venue. I worked there for like 7 or 8 years. So I was on the ground, on the floor, in the theater every day. Like 7 shows, 8 shows a week. These were different kinds of ghosts. It didn't feel like they were consciousness. It didn't feel like they had like personalities. It was just like residual energy. It was just like so many people had been walking up and down the staircase that even when no one was there, you could see people walking up and down the staircase, like repeating the same pattern. I did not know an usher who did not have the experience of standing up for a patron that wasn't there. So you'd be reading your book or like reading your Kindle, and then you'd hear somebody or see footsteps coming and you'd stand and there'd be nobody there. And that was a universal experience. We were all going through that. The times where it was the spookiest was when I was a floor supervisor and I go to open the house. The house is like the inside of the theater where the seats are. And the supervisor goes in there, and at a certain point, the stage manager of the show gives you the house. So when it's yours as the floor supervisor or as the house manager, you can open it when the time comes and let the people in. So, you know, we'd be in there for 15 minutes before, you know, just to be ready to receive the house. And oh my goodness, there was always, after a while, I stopped going to check because I knew it wasn't real. But in the beginning, when I was on hyper alert, because no one's allowed to be in there. So you'd see somebody sitting in the mezzanine upstairs and you'd be like, oh, I have to go ask that person to leave. How did they get in here? And you get up there, there's nobody there. And it's not even that big. There was like maybe 1,000 seats upstairs. And you would always see somebody. And there was a guy with like a bowler hat style who would either be in the mezzanine or in the left side of the orchestra section, just sitting there. And in the beginning, you're like, oh, but then it's just like, you get used to it and you're like, oh, that's a ghost and I'm not going to go get up and ask them to leave because that's unnecessary. And I would always see people walking by with a suitcase or sitting in the seats when I was going to go unlock all the emergency exits. Like when I first got there, I hated doing that. I would always have my coworker do it because I didn't want to see it. And I was like getting into witchcraft at the time, but I was not getting into spirit work and I was totally not ready for it. And I was like, nope. But by the time I stopped working there, it was really comfortable. I felt really cared for by the building itself, less the spirits that inhabited it, but the building itself I felt really cared for and protected. And there was just always just like apparitions. I feel like this is something where I would use that word as opposed to a ghost, because I didn't feel like it was like they were doing anything except for continuing this loop of walking down the stairs or walking across the lobby. And it just wasn't ever that scary. It never had the texture or the weight of an experience of a ghost that's like the ghost of someone or the ghost of something that was, or like a spirit that was never human but is like conscious, right? That has a different weight and a different texture to me. And so it was just not as scary because it didn't have that feeling. There were a couple of times where I did like run out of there because it got scary and you'd see a ghost sitting there or walking across, and it would be a little bit more dense than normal. Like it wouldn't be so clear or translucent. It'd be a little denser and you'd be like, and it's just funny looking back on how like scared I was. I feel like I still like do get a little nervous because in my house, if there's like an apparition, my wards are not working and it's time to refresh. It's time to do something because I have very specific wording to allow spirits that I'm calling in or spirits that are in my highest and best, but like literally no one else. So in my house, if I see something like that, I'm like, hello. So it's just not something I encounter often. And it's funny to me to look back and be like, now I literally do psychic work. Now I spent a big chunk of my like professional life doing mediumship, and I just spent so much of my life terrified of them. So I just wanted to get on here and quickly tell my ghost stories because it was fun, and because friggin' fall is, I understand that it's not here, but also it's here. Okay. Do you have a ghost story? Tell me your ghost stories. I would love to hear your ghost stories. It's so interesting to me. And if you have like an interesting one or something that you thought was extra spooky, share it with me in the comments. Stick around and subscribe if you want to. Like the video if you liked it. Or if you didn't like it, like you could still like it. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you next week with letter B. I'm not going to tell you what we're talking about. You'll have to stick around to find out, but we've got a couple more topics to talk about next week. Thanks so much. Have an amazing holiday. And by holiday, I mean it's fall. Okay? Spooky out. Bye.